Hey guys, what's up? As you can probably tell by the title of the video, we are going to make IRONMOUSE today. I personally love VTubers so much because the designs are just so incredibly detailed and beautiful, but IRONMOUSE has a very special place in my heart. So I'm gonna make her as a doll in her pink rock outfit today. We have a lot to do for that, so why don't we just get started right away? Let's go! So first we need a doll base to work with, right? Since I wanted the doll to look as close to Mousy as possible, I commissioned my dear friend Blue Pixie to sculpt the head and accessories for my Nova doll body so I could then set up my printer and start the printing process. I can already tell something did not print. Yeah, as you can see, the whole lower torso piece did not print, which is always fun. Okay, so I printed some of the failed pieces on the small printer and the leg pieces here, so let's hope all of these are printed. Ooh, let's see. This is what I like to see. Perfectly printed pieces. And all of them are printed. Yes! Yes! So, after the printing dilemma in the beginning, luckily all the pieces printed nicely, so I could all wash them and give them a UV light vacation in the curing station. I then ended up with a bowl of doll parts that now need to be sanded a little before we can put them together. Some of the pieces have very minor printing issues which can easily be grinded away, as well as some leftover broken support pimples. I just keep sanding and sanding all the doll pieces until I'm satisfied and sanded them all while my dogs wanted to really keep me from working. How am I supposed to work with these two cuties? Let me show you. Look at these two cuties here, looking at me like this. Yeah, we are going lunch soon, I promise! With all the doll pieces sanded smooth, I ended up with a bunch of doll parts that just look so nice. I cannot wait to put these together, but there's still some work that needs to be done before we can do so. Since the feet and hands are removable, we will need some magnetic magnets that I will be gluing into the joints and fitting hands or feet using some I will never ever get my fingertips to feel again super glue. The best way for me to glue the magnets in is to keep them on a stack and insert them like this. This way I won't risk them getting stuck to my fingers forever. And to put them in hands and feet, I just use blue tack on a Q-tap. Sorry. And push them in like this. When the glue has dried, I can just take off the Q-tip of the magnet and it looks great. Let's see if they fit together. Yep, perfect. I also glued some magnets into the head and faceplate so they fit together nice and snug. Feet also work, so let's use these very ugly S-hooks that I totally not made myself from the former Microsoft Office Assistant's Clippy's ancestors. I simply hook them onto the ankle and wrist joint and close the hook a little so it stays on the joint better. Then, taking a folded rubber band about the length of two big grasshoppers, I start threading them through the armholes on both sides with the assistance of some wires that I then take as help to thread the arm pieces onto the rubber as well on both sides. To be able to hook the wrist joints on, I insert some wooden sticks to the end of the arms and can then hook the other end of the S-hook onto the rubber band, remove the stick, and yay, she has arms! So half of the doll body is strung already, now it's just the body missing. For that I take another folded rubber band and first thread it through the head back, then the upper torso, middle torso and lower torso where I split it, and thread it through both leg holes, and then just like with the arms, thread all the leg pieces onto the rubber band until I reach the end of the legs. I then secure it with sticks again and then just hook the ankle joints onto the rubber band, remove the sticks, and boom, she is strung. Now I just need to put on the faceplate and our base doll is done. I know some people were wondering why these joints are so bulky. It's because she can do this. That's why she's super flexible and she can kneel and hug her knees and stuff. So it all has a reason. And yeah, let me show you the doll before I start working on her. Blue Pixie did such an incredible job in sculpting her. I'm so happy but also a little anxious if I can do her justice and really make her look like IRONMOUSE. But hey, let's just try, right? While I was starting to work on the doll, I actually received a huge package from Xtool in which there will be a gadget that will be an insane addition to this custom. Let me show you. So I got these two Ginormosaurus.
It's Ginormosaurus.
Packages from Xtool, and it's actually a laser cutter and a purifier for the air because it steams a lot and stuff. I'm so excited. I'm going to unbox these now and then we're gonna cut something for this project. So let's unbox this. So Xtool was so nice to send me their M1 blade and laser cutter, which combines a laser cutter and a Cricut. It came with an enormous amount of accessories and materials that I cannot possibly all use in one video, but I can already tell you I will be using this device probably all the time now because of the sheer amount of things that you can do with it. Basically, you can laser cut, blade cut and engrave all kinds of materials with this device, and I'm going to be making a custom doll stand for IRONMOUSE in this video. And also use this gadget for a few other things. You will see. Okay, well, that's a lot of stuff. That's so many different pieces, and I really have to read into the manual now how to set this up, and then we are going to make a first test cut. So let's do that. With the laser cutter set up, I can now prepare the custom acrylic doll stand for the doll. I vectorized her logo and simplified it a little for the machine, and then tried a little test cut. So I already made a test with some other colors that I'm not going to use, and it looks really good for the doll stand. It looks amazing and it fits, so yeah, let's cut it from the actual colors. Okay, he's done. Ooh, this is very light. This looks really good. Okay, let's take this out and... Okay. Let's switch cameras. The test was successful and the cut in pink turned out amazing. So how about some peel-off protection film ASMR? So satisfying. It just looks so cool, and I'm still a bit flabbergasted actually. I also have all the little hearts I will need, and now just need to cut out the second layer from another color so I can assemble the doll stand. Since Pink Rock IRONMOUSE has a lot of black and pink, I decided to go for black as a second color. It also cut this one fantastic. I then just have to peel off the protection layer as well, and can now put all the pieces together. First, I glue some double-faced tape to the back side of the pink piece. I could have used glue, but I didn't want any glue marks on the black, so this seemed safer and cleaner. I then just needed to peel off all the protection film from the tape and can then carefully stick it onto the black plate. I press it on firmly and then place all the little single hearts onto the logo, as well as the little inlay of the E. And boom! Now it's just the pole missing. I will be using one from some doll stands I recently ordered, and now just have to insert it into the little hole. And with that, the custom doll stand is done. I had way too much fun making this, and you can be certain that this is probably going to be a thing from now on, from time to time. Thank you so much Xtool for sending me this amazing gadget. I will have such a good use for it. If you want your own Xtool, you can now get it via my affiliate link in the description box. Every purchase supports the channel, and I will be using this gadget for a few other things in this video. Just wait for it. Okay, but now we can finally start with the doll outfit. Let's make her pants first. I couldn't find a tartan fabric in pink, so I decided to make one myself by first cutting a grid from black fabric vinyl. I used my dad's professional plotter for that because it's very fast. What was not fast was me weeding out the 749 squares of the sheet. So, the black is done. It only took 40 years. And now I have to do the same from this pink that I printed and then cut. And yeah, let's do that. So yeah, another 749 squares to go for the pink fabric vinyl as well. Yay! Yeah, this is gonna take a while again. See? 1498 squares later. I have confetti now. Okay, I somehow made it work to peel this off, this vinyl, and put it on here, which was not easy, but now we can iron it on. Yes! It would be an understatement that my back was literally trying to make me scream in agony, but hey, I want the perfect fabric, I have to suffer for it. Looks good. It has like one little part here, these parts don't matter, this little part, but all in all, majority of it Looks really good. Okay, let's put the black on. Pink turned out nice, now it's just the black grid missing, which also turned out pretty nice, so let's cut the pants. Here you can see I already traced the pattern pieces onto the fabric to make sure the pattern will line up nicely after sewing. I also ironed the little heart onto the waistband and cut that out already. And then carefully and slowly I cut the fabric until all the pieces I need have been released from it. To start off sewing the pants, I'm going to slap together the front parts and sew the middle crotch seam first, finished sides in. Using my sewing machine on 1.8 stitch length, I hem the seam and place some paper underneath the fabric to stop my machine from devouring the doll-sized pieces. I can then just strip off the paper afterwards and have a nice and clean seam. Yeah, that seems about right. After ironing the front seam as flat as some people think our planet is like, I then proceed to prepare the back pieces and first fold the little darts on the back in shape. I align the notches on top and fold the triangle towards the end before hemming them like this on both back pieces. I also iron them nice and flat and they look very neat like this. With front and back pieces prepared, we can now smash them together and attach them along the side seams, finished sides in. Afterwards, I'm going to melt the bottom seams of the pants together using one of my favorite materials, seam tape. I iron it on with some baking paper, peel it off, fold it around, and then melt the fabric pieces together. I just need to do that all the way along the bottom seam allowance and then can use some super cute pink lace, place it underneath the bottom seams and pin it in place. I then just top stitch it and it just looks mega cute. I prepared some little belt loops off cam and will now slightly glue them onto the waistband just to hold them in place before sewing them on along the top seam. I ironed the top seam around with some seam tape already and will let magic happen to attach the waistband to the pants. I honestly wish it would be that fast in reality. Almost done, we just need to fold together the back seam good sides in and hem it now. And after that we just fold the crotch seams together and hem that last seam finished sides in as well. With a closure added to the pants, they look like that and we can now accessorize them. First, let's make the harness. For making it, I cut some pleather stripes and will take them and an elastic band to sew some loops that I can later slide onto the thighs of the doll. I hand stitch the rubber band first on one, then onto the other side of the pleather stripe until I have this elastic loop. Then, taking a second stripe, I place it around the loop, letting it hug it warmly and glue the whole thing in place using my beloved OOAK glue. Next, I add some studded decorations with tiny nail art studs and glue. I realized though it was tricky while not being on the doll, so I attached the harness with little rings to the belt loops and then just continued gluing on the studs. For the belt, I will take this silver chain and first thread it through all the belt loops starting on the back, going all the way around the front to the back again. And then just pull the chain in place and add the little star charms to the front and back by just threading them onto small rings and those rings onto the chain. Awesome! Now just the tail is missing. I will be making it by hand by using some cast clay. This stuff is amazing because it stays flexible after baking, so I will be able to first roll out a long thin sausage before pressing in a wire to the middle of it, press it firmly together and roll it again, inserting the wire into the very core of the sausage. I then just keep rolling, yeah? And remove clay if necessary until I end up with this long thin tail part. I have to bake this now. Yee! And yeah, I then put the whole thing in the oven on 130 degrees Celsius for about 30 minutes. And as you can see, after it was baked and cooled down, I can now bend it in shape, which is just so cool. I, however, still need to make her tail tip and do that by forming a little heart from cast clay as well, and then press it onto one end of the tail, throwing it into the oven again for another 30 minutes. And then it's finally time to paint the tail pink with some acrylic paint. I needed a couple of paint layers, but in the end it turned out really nice. Now the only thing missing is the little piercing. I just drill a hole into the heart with my tiny little drill and insert a little silver metal ring. I just have to close it with pliers and also bend the other end of the tail into a little S-hook. It will attach to this little eyelet I sewed onto the pants and will hook on like this. And with that, the pants are finally done. This was a whole journey already, I know, and it was just the first clothing piece, but I think they turned out so nice, and I love them so much. Okay, let's make her some tights. I cut the pattern from black fishnet tights and first place the pattern pieces together and sew them along the front seam finished sides in. Afterwards, I take an elastic rubber band and will now sew it on top of the tights, stretching the rubber out while sewing it on with a zigzag so that it will gather and be elastic afterwards. Then I simply need to hem them together at the back seam, finished sides in. And afterwards, it's just the crotch seam from foot to foot missing that I sew as well, finished sides in. And with that, the tights are already done. I made them from a thinner material in the end because the mesh didn't look as nice as this thin tights material. To make the black-pink leg warmers, I will use some socks for fun as a base material and cut the pattern piece from them. I will be making her leg warmers because I don't want her shoes to become too tight in the end. I cut the pattern pieces twice first and then just clean up the top and bottom seam with some seam tape. And after I did that with both pieces, I then just need to sew them together along the back seam, good sides in, turn them inside out and have some cute striped leg warmers. Next clothing piece on the bucket list is her top. For that, I first need to make a little print. Okay, so I'm printing the hearts with the horns now. First the hearts, then glitter on the heart, and then horns. Let's do that. Since I did not have the right shade of pink in vinyl, I decided to use a light pink one, topped with a vibrant glitter heart. I ironed on top of it, and then some little matte silver horns. With the print on the pattern piece, I can now start sewing by first prepping the bra cups. Since the doll has some bigger tatas, it was not that easy to make the patterning for the top. I will sew the darts on the bra cups in a nice bow to make it align with the shape of the doll as good as I can. After I was satisfied with how the cups looked like, I can then proceed and melt the top seam allowances together with seam tape like this, alongside with doing the same on the top and bottom seam allowances on the top. Afterwards it looked very neat, so I can use my Oohoo glue, yes it's Oohoo, not Yoo-hoo, trust me, to glue the cups into the top. I like to glue them before top stitching them, because they don't just fly everywhere while I'm trying to sew them in place. When the cups were both nicely put in place, I can then use this small black lace and will simply glue it to the top part of the cups. Nice! Now I can finally fold around the front center seam allowances on the top and glue them around with some seam tape as well. And then it's time for some hand stitching. I will be dividing this embroidery thread in half to make it a bit thinner, then satisfyingly thread it through a needle and add the decorative stitching that IRONMOUSE's shirt has all the way around the top. I'm doing that very slowly and try to make the stitch length about the same every time, which was not that easy actually. When I was done, it looked really pretty though, and I was surprised myself how good it looked. Now for the fun part, putting eyelets into the top. I did not have any silver eyelets left in the correct size, so I will be simply using these white ones and will paint them silver afterwards. No one will know. Well, except you guys. I just marked the spot of the eyelet on the top, cut a little hole in the fabric, thread them in and use the eyelet tool and my hammer to, hammer those things in. Looking fine. Now I just need to repeat this step 7 more times and we have some pretty eyelets in the top. Now comes the cheating, painting the white eyelet silver. I was honestly surprised by how good this fake silver eyelet sheet worked out in the end. Et voila, silver eyelet. I just have to paint them all. While the silver paint was drying, I used the opportunity to try out the blade cutting function of the M1. I will use this PVC sheet and this silver vinyl. Hello. Okay, after I was done having fun, I applied the vinyl to the PVC sheet so I can cut the little buckles for the straps of IRONMOUSE's shirt. I am very easily entertained, as you can see. I then tried out the blade cutting function and honestly I'm extremely surprised how nice it cut the sheet. Look at this! It's so nice and easier to use than I thought. I can now just take out all the little pieces for the strap buckles and then assemble them. I realized that the hearts needed to be pink though, so I cut some hearts without the silver vinyl and then just painted them pink. And then I simply take my super glue and first glue on the strap holding piece to the bigger bottom piece. And then take the little hearts that had some time to dry now and top the buckle with them and a dab of glue. Whoa, this actually looks incredible. Now I'm taking a pleather stripe, thread it through the buckle piece and glue it in place on the back with my ubu glue. And then repeat the whole thing a second time and end up with 2 pretty straps. To make it easier to attach them, I laced the top and put it onto the doll, but left the straps longer still for easier handling later. And then I simply glue the straps onto the top in the front and on the back. And with that, the top is done. For Mousie's final dress up, I will cut the straps short later on, but I am in love with how good it turned out. I especially love the strap buckles and the decorative stitching. Let's make her choker. I printed this little skull Blue Pixie sculpted and will first paint it silver completely out of frame because I'm an absolute professional. Oh shit. Oh no, I was completely not in focus. It's just silver. Sorry. After that I take 2 cleaned up stripes from pink fabric, 1 smaller one and one with those zigzag edges, and place them on top of each other and fold them like this, creating a little fake ribbon. To fixate it, I thread a needle and a thread through the ribbon and wrap it around the ribbon multiple times before securing it on the back. I then just glue the ribbon a little in shape and can now attach that little silver skull with some glue. This is the time where I also paint the little pink heart on the forehead, and I also attached a ring on the backside of the ribbon so I can sew the whole thing onto the choker. For the choker itself, I use a pleather stripe again and just secure the ribbon in place with a few hand stitches. And with a little snap button added on the back, the choker is done, and I'm so happy how good it looks. I was a bit concerned if it might become too bulky, but it's not at all, and it's just a really pretty accessory. Okay, one more clothing piece except the boots missing. The gloves. Since I couldn't find a gradient fabric for these, I guess I just have to make the gradient myself, right? So I cut the pattern pieces from some pink jersey fabric, first wet them a little with water, and then dunked them into some black fabric dye. Then, using my fingers, which was not a good idea by the way, I tried to blend out an even gradient, which honestly was absolutely not easy, and I needed 3 or 4 tries until I was satisfied with the result. When I thought it looked good, I then took it out of the dye bath and washed it out with some water. After it was dry, it looked like this, and even though it was not completely black on the bottom, it looked really great together with all the other pieces, so I could continue on to making the gloves. First, I will be ironing around the bottom seam allowance with some seam tape. Then I prepared a black jersey stripe with seam tape as well, and will now iron it onto the bottom seam and fold it around like this, so it will look like the one I already made. I snip off any excess and now take some pink jersey stripes and fold them in place like this. Glued together with some seam tape, they look like this. I also cleaned up the upper seam allowances on the other side of the gloves and will now iron the pink stripes onto the top like this. When this was done and the thumb hole seam allowances cleaned up as well, I can finally sew the gloves together, finished sides in. I fold them together and will sew them along the seam, then leave a small gap open and then close the final little tiny piece. Again, I'm using the paper method because especially with jersey fabric, my machine likes to do funny things sometimes. IRONMOUSE has these little tiny wings on top of her gloves, so I cut them from 2 different black vinyls and will first glue the small shiny finger piece onto the matte wing piece. I carefully peel off the transfer vinyl and then repeat the step 3 more times. Afterwards, I can then peel off 2 opposite wings at a time, spray them with a bit of water, and then carefully stick them together, making sure they align nicely. Yes, this looks awesome! To attach the studs and wings to the gloves, I put them onto the doll. To protect the doll from glue and stuff, I wrapped her in some blue tights, in case you wonder, and just proceed adding the studs to the upper part of the gloves first. Then I also made these tiny pink ribbons that I glue onto the top part of the gloves as well, before applying some glue to the back part of the wings, inserting them into the glove, securing them in place. And with that, the gloves are done! I wish I could have made her actual gloves with all 5 fingers, but the hands are just too tiny for that. But I think this way it also looks really good, and I love all the little details. Next step, making her boots. Oof. I already printed these shoe bases that fit the doll perfectly and will paint them black first. I only need to paint the visible part, so it doesn't need to be super accurate. When I was done painting them, I then traced all the pattern pieces onto the backside of some black pleather fabric and now just need to cut them out. With the pieces all ready, I then first take the heel piece and seal off the edges with some PVA glue. This works pretty well and gives it kind of a cool finish. While this was drying, I prepared the inside piece of the boot and first cut a slit into it for the zipper. I cut it straight down the marking and let it end in a little triangle. And then, using some Kraftkleber, or contact glue for a better name, I apply the yummy, gooey, toxic boogers along the zipper slit and let that whole thing dry for a little moment. When it was tacky enough to stick, I then fold the seam allowances around and hammer it in place. That really helped. Now I can simply clip the zipper in place and then sew it on with my zipper foot and a lot of sighing because sewing in zippers is a pain. It worked out quite nicely though, so I can cut off the rest of the zipper and then place the other boot part on top of this one and sew both pieces together along the backside. I also top stitched the seam allowances down towards each side for a nice flat finish. Then I can take the dried heel piece and slightly glue it in place at the heel part and sew it on along the rounded edge. To make the heel part a bit thinner in fabric again, I then cut out the invisible part from the boot piece like this. For the pink top part of the boot, I prepped these pink stripes and will now sew them onto the boot like this. One on the long and one on the shorter part. Awesome! They will be later glued in place like this, but first we'll be adding the tongue of the boot by sewing it onto the front part of the shoe on both sides. After that was done, I can then glue the pink fabric piece in place. Now it's finally time to attach the boot to the shoe base, so I put everything on the doll foot and leg and first glue the tongue in place by adding glue and then pushing it underneath the toe box of the shoe base. And then, using contact glue again, I also glue the rest of the fabric boot onto the shoe base. With a lighter I can even melt and even out the fabric edges a little. Some glue stains on the sole can be removed and I can just use some paint again if any chipped off. And to cover up the seam line, I will add some PVA glue to the seam and then use a double embroidery thread that I will add along the seam line all the way around the boot. I press it in place and add more glue as I go. To give the boots the many buckles in the front, I cut them with my Xtool M1 again and now just have to free them from the PVC sheet. I made 16 in total, so 8 for each boot, and prepare them by threading a pleather stripe through them and cutting them all to an even length. How about we speed up the process, shall we? Awesome! All 16 buckle straps ready to be glued onto the shoes. To make this process easier, I decided to leave the shoes on the doll and then just evenly spread all the buckles and glue them on. And with the straps shortened, the boots are done, and I'm so proud of how they turned out. Also, it is great to see that I can totally make small buckles with my M1 machine. That's so awesome! I'm also glad the pink seam line turned out like this. Yay! Before we make her some hair, let's paint one last accessory. Her heart-shaped guitar. Additionally to the doll, Blue also sculpted this one and I printed it in white resin and will now paint it. I mixed a really nice cute pink shade and paint the body and the headstock of the guitar pink first. Then I add some black to the neck and tuning pegs and then start painting the horns, pickups, bridge, tone controls and frets silver. Painting the frets was finicky, but I somehow made it work. To add some strings, I will use some silver thread and kind of string the guitar by gluing them on. I made it work, but that took ages. It took way longer than I thought. To make the big purple star, I just cut it from purple self-adhesive vinyl, peel it off the silicone paper and stick it onto the guitar. Last but not least, I cut a pleather stripe for the strap, cut slits in it and attach it to the strap buttons. And with that we have the cutest guitar. If I was a guitar player, this guitar would be the guitar of my dreams. Okay, let's make IRONMOUSE's wig. I made the wig cap already from an old tights and some PVA glue and prepared some yarn wefts in pink and purple. Since she has pigtails, I'm going to glue the wig accordingly. I start in the back first and glue the lower hairline double up until the ears. And then I start gluing wefts along the middle part, first into the direction of the pigtail. Afterwards, I glue one line on top in the opposite direction so that I can make a clean and nice parting line in the end. This looks pretty funny right now, but I can now secure the pigtail with a rubber band to hold the hair in place. After I added the second pigtail as well, I then proceed to glue the front part of the wig with additional wefts. In between layers, I also cut them to the correct length already using an eyebrow trimmer for a nice feathery cut. I styled it in place with a little bit of hairspray and my fingers. Here the front part of the wig is done and I can now add some longer yarn wefts that I made to the pigtails to make them longer and fluffier. I simply take the wefts and glue them around the pigtails, also adding a little bit of purple in between again as well. When both pigtails were done, I then used my small curling iron to curl them a little bit. And then it is time to add some hairbands by gluing pleather stripes along the pigtails and topping them with some studs I'm gluing on. I also printed and painted a bunch of the hair accessories like the horns, hearts and the little hairpin, and can now simply glue them to the wig. Unfortunately my cam died here, but I simply glued the horns, a little bell and the heart to the side of the pigtail. Also IRONMOUSE's little hair heart can't be missing. I made it from some cosplay and glue some yarn wefts all the way around it. And then I just top the wig with it and glue it in place. Last but not least, I just add some teeny tiny black horns that I also made from cosplay and add them to the wig. And with that, the wig is done. This one was a real challenge, but I'm glad I could make it work. I love that the hair almost looks like cotton candy and it's also so soft. I also love the little bells and the hearts with the horns. Alright, it's finally time for her face. I cannot wait to paint it. First, after spraying her with Mr. Super Clear, I add some micro glitter for a bedazzling glow before going in with some soft blushing by using some pastel chalk dust. When I was satisfied with the blushing, I then take my brown pencil and start sketching out the eyelids. I tried to draw them as close to IRONMOUSE's model as I could, which was a bit difficult because of the three-dimensional surface, but I had a lot of fun doing so. When both eyes were sketched, I also sketched out the thin eyebrow lines on both sides. Making eyebrows align with each other is not easy, but I guess it's just a matter of practice. After sketching the eyebrows, I also map out the lower lashes. And then it is time for my favorite part, filling in the sketched lines with acrylics. This is a nerve-wracking but oddly satisfying thing to do. Whoa! After filling the eye in with acrylics, I also add some lighter shading to the lines to soften them a little with pastel chalk dust. I wrote IRONMOUSE! IRONMOUSE also has some tiny white lashes on top of the black eyelines, so I tried to also paint these. And then it was time to fill in her mouth with color. I used a Bordeaux red for the inner part of the mouth, pink for the tongue and white for the teeth. Oh, she looks so cute, oh my god! Now it's just the black star on her cheek missing, and I first sketch it out with my pencil as well and then go in with some black acrylic paint on top of it. And what can't be missing on a Moonlight jewel face-up? Right, pearly shimmers! I use my favorite iridescent shimmer and spread it on the cheeks for a magical glow. And then I just need to use my favorite Liquitex High Gloss varnish and add it to the mouth, the lower lash line and to the eyeshadow. Great, face done! Let's make her eyes. Since Blue Pixie made an artwork from IRONMOUSE's face in 3D, she also sent me the irises artwork and I just printed them onto some cardstock and cut them out. I then fill my 15mm half sphere mold with some UV resin and then place the eye chip upside down on top of the resin and cure the whole thing under my UV lamp for about 3 to 4 minutes. After demolding, we have some really pretty eyes that just need one more gloss of UV nail polish and boom! Perfect shiny anime eyes. Alright, here's the face, let's insert them to the head. Oh wow, this really brings her to life, right? Alright, we have one more little tiny thing left before we are done. Let's give IRONMOUSE some long black fingernails. To make those, I take the hand and some tape and tape it around one finger like this. Then I take a drop of UV resin on a toothpick and dab it onto the tape. forming a little fingernail. I then cure it with my UV light for about 20 to 30 seconds. Afterwards I can simply take off the tape with a nail like this, then take the nail off the tape, put a tiny dot of UV resin on top of the finger and place the fingernail onto the finger carefully, sliding it in place and curing it for about a minute under my UV lamp. After all nails were done and sanded in shape, I then just need to paint them with acrylic paint. And with some gloss added to them, we have some perfect long fingernails, and I think they look really cool. And I guess we are finally done. Wow, this was a long process, but I'm so stoked to show you the final doll. May I present to you IRONMOUSE. And here is my pink rock IRONMOUSE. It was such a journey to make her, but I learned so much, especially that I need to schedule my time better. Thank you to all my patrons for the incredible support throughout the years. You guys mean so much to me and you are absolute chats. Make sure to like and subscribe if you like my content, and also leave a comment for algorithmic purposes. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next video and have a beautiful demonic day. Bye!